You would think kidnapping a boy for 16 years would be enough to get a girl canceled, but no, she's hot and also racist.
Not sorry.
Hekapoo from Star vs. the Force of Evil started out so fire, only to get worse with every subsequent appearance. Till she's shrugging off her own death and the fact that she helped prop up an oppressive regime built for racist toddlers. Then there's also the whole Marco situation where she had a thing for a 14-year-old, which I know sounds bad given that she's millions of years old, but it's okay. He's mentally 30 and dating a 15-year-old.
Should I be concerned?
Maybe.
Star vs. final season was a mess, y'all. Everyone who was alive at the time knows it. However, Hekapoo's fall off and the non-arc she gets has been under-discussed, and I think it's about time. As this girl is a mess, the character is wasted and filled with writing choices that clash constantly, and she was down to clown with Marco, who the show just could never decide was legal or not. So let's break down one of the most disappointing characters in Star vs. and what was once my personal favorite ship in the show. That's right, I shipped it, as, come on, it was one of the least insane options.
Let's be honest.
For those who don't know, Star vs. the Forces of Evil is the story about a princess with a magical nuke and ADD. Having burnt her own kingdom to the ground, her parents did the responsible thing and made her someone else's problem, dumping her on Earth, paying the rent, and getting the hell out of Dodge with shenanigans ensuing for the kid. And honestly, the first 3 seasons of Star still hits for me.
Come on, fellas! Can we discuss this man to possum?
'Twas dumb fun, but it was still fun and hadn't stabbed itself in the eye trying to make a point yet. We got great moments, hold on. Villains, and probably one of the best dynamic duos Disney ever built till their chemistry got ruined by awkward shipping drama.
So, are you and Tom?
Yep.
L. To put the focus back on Marco Diaz, he was great, till he wasn't. The safe kid at school who wanted some adventure in his life, Star old moneyed her way into living with him, with the school forcing him to hang out with her. Thankfully, this flaming rainbow spewing agent of chaos turned out to be exactly what the doctor ordered, dragging him into the power fantasy he always wanted, as he got to beat up the bad guys, go on adventures, and just nearly die every week, plus a nice little mix of school drama to help keep him grounded. He's got a crush and zero game, so seeing him make slow progress to ask her out was cute, and they got together, and then they broke up, because of course they did.
You blow it, man.
To be honest, Marco, like Star, had a harem's worth of dating options for most of the show. They were the main characters, and people simped accordingly. Star and Marco were doomed to end up together because plot? But we had a pretty decent run of pretending that wasn't true, meaning any one of these girls, and Tom, could have ended up with Diaz. Then he became a grown-ass man. Now, I've already made a video about this part of Marco's character, but long story short, this development could have been fine. Could have just been a one-off adventure where we saw him aged up and hot, every young boy's dream, to level up like a Pokemon, just be a better version of yourself. But then the show fumbles it by just constantly bringing this fact up. It doesn't just say he spent decades in another dimension, but those memories faded away when he got back home. No, they just have him say he remembers everything, and he identifies with being 30.
How old are you? A, 0 to 15, B, 16 to 25, C, 26 to 35.
Yeah, we got a 14-year-old who turned 15 in Pizza Party who is mentally 30 and then 50 plus after it happens again. And he's still being shipped with a teenager.
Lock him up!
Look, if they had ignored the adult thing, brought it up once maybe as a bit, I think the fandom could have lived and let lived. Not every crazy thing a show does needs to be fully unpacked and treated as like, oh, this is 100% canon. Sometimes you want to do something as a bit and then move on. But no, they just ring it up. Again and again, like a surprising amount. I mean that we're always gonna be trapped in the weirdness that Marco, being with anybody his bio age, was gonna have this wrinkle. Well, the only person we could semi-ship him with being the one who put him in this situation in the first place. Hekapoo.
Oh, dude, it's on!
This is Hekapoo. She's a member of the Magic High Commission, a group of beings charged with protecting magic and keeping it from falling into the quote-unquote wrong hands. Each member has their own role and specialty, with Hekapoo's jurisdiction being interdimensional travel, creating the magical scissors that allow people to get around the multiverse, and also became a responsibility to monitor said scissors, and to make sure they are used responsibly, which...
What?
Marco fucked around and found out, using star scissors to optimize low effort, as Bro couldn't even be bothered to do a proper trash shot. So seeing this, Hekapoo kidnaps the teenager to teach him a lesson, confiscating the scissors, claiming that they're fully hers and that only the worthy can have them. This ignores the fact that Star got her pair from a friend who got them from Hekapoo, who left them in a club bathroom, which is the first hint to Hekapoo's biggest character trait. She's kind of a hypocrite.
Dare you hide something like that?
The next day.
For some reason, you can lie to us? How does that make you any different than the villain you say Eclipsa is?
She's growing a literal child for using the scissors she lost irresponsibly. Marco, being the perpetual good boy, decides to take this personally, going from I can't disappoint Star and lose her scissors to this woman called me a little boy and I am going to devote the rest of my life to proving her wrong. And he does exactly that.
In the midst of the Never Zone, I thought I'd never find you. After spending a few years infiltrating a cloister of monks.
He starts monologuing.
Now yes, Hekapoo did kidnap and belittle a teenager, but after he proved to be a bit more clever and adaptable than she expected, Hekapoo does give Marco the option to take the L and head home, but he rejects this, deciding to spend the next 16 years trying to blow out her candle, which does sound like a euphemism, but it's literal in this case. He eventually blows all of her clones till he at last arrives at her house where Hekapoo is forging Marco his own scissors, as yeah, she's decided he's earned this, with the whole scene just dripping in sexual tension.
And ending up right at your door.
Not bad for a human.
This is some classic hero-villainess shit, especially in the context that Marco has spent most of his life chasing this woman, them having had this cat and mouse game, always coming so close but Hekapoo always getting away, only for the dance to finally be reaching its end, with neither of them really regretting anything. Hekapoo isn't trying to put up one last fight, she's just there and saying, yeah, you can have it. Marco's getting some well-earned monologuing about how he was able to chase her down. This feels like a fanfic, and I kinda fuck with it. Everything happened off screen, but this was a big swing, and given how I've always had a soft spot for like genre-shipped episodes, I always thought, okay, this is just a cool concept, as it takes Marco's thrill seeking to its logical extreme with a woman who manages to be both cool, antagonistic, and a bit of a troll. Plus, on a show with an incredibly tame art style, this was the one time they are allowed to like indulge in making people hot. And then the show kept going.
16 years? You've been gone from Earth for like 8 minutes.
8 minutes?
Yeah, time dilation is a bitch, and somehow this makes Marco look worse as he's kind of annoyed that only a few minutes have passed back home after spending years trying to one-up a ginger. But he now knows the truth and decides to abandon the life he loves to go back home with Star, leaving his dragon pet with Hekapoo, who isn't pushing him one way or the other. But then he gets back, and he's 14 again.
No! My hot bod! Where did it go?
So this situation is a lot. Marco can't remember his password, showing how long ago this life really was for him, only for the rest of the season pretend that he isn't a 30-year-old trapped in a teenager's body. Which again, I would have preferred. We could just ignore it and treat it as like, okay, one-off, but we bring it up, both as a gag and to justify him getting a power-up, making it really hard to ignore the elephant in the room. And so at this point in the story, while I liked Jackie, Star and Marco's chemistry hadn't been kinda ruined yet, I found myself shipping him primarily with Hekapoo.
Just drive muscles.
Yes, ma'am.
Hear me out. At this point in the story, based on all the info the show had given, Marco got Lion Witch in the wardrobe. He's a mental adult in a teenager's body, so when given the choice between him dating teenagers or dating a woman who knows his situation, I'm picking fucking Hekapoo. This brings to mind the Superboy situation from Young Justice Season 2, where we find out because he's a clone, Superboy is gonna remain looking like a jacked 16-year-old forever. But because his love interest is a shapeshifter where physical appearance doesn't really matter that much, except it really does, it's a whole plot point. But given how Miss Martian can look however she wants while he will look the same forever, while also sharing a mental connection where they both truly know who the other person is behind the facade, it kinda made it work. With Hekapoo x Marco having a similar situation, which gave it a leg up on all the other options. As yeah, Hekapoo does know who he actually is. And this got even better when we found out that when Marco goes back to Hekapoo's dimension, he becomes an adult again. Which, okay, that's really makes the ship as kosher as it's gonna get. But then a funny thing happened. Hekapoo started to suck.
We had to.
Can you imagine if the power of magic fell into the hands of a
Now this didn't happen all at once, but when I say that Hekapoo's character is all down from hill, I want you to know I'm serious. We get one brief host spot in her next major appearance, where she's hanging out with Marco, letting him lend a hand closing illegal portals. Marco seizes a chance to blow off some steam as he's abandoned his entire life to move in with Star, who has already moved back in with her ex, leaving Marco alone, craving adventure as Star is more interested in politics and ending racism to go on shenanigans with him. So he spends his nights with Hekapoo, who is very okay with this and is just a little disappointed he can't stay for drinks and that he isn't his old hot self.
I just wish more portals would open in your dimension, Hekapoo. Yeah, looks so awesome there.
Yeah, it's a real shame.
Yeah, she wanted him.
Pretty please, H-Boo.
Oh, you know I can't resist your adult voice.
Like, really wanted him. But this episode is all about Marco letting everyone down, hiding the fact that Star is the thing making the portals so that he can have fun closing them. Hekapoo is rightfully annoyed and swears off team-ups. Thankfully, she's still horny for Marco's voice, so she'll give them time before ratting them out to the feds, with this being the part that really screws over Hekapoo's character, her appeal, and the ship by proxy. As yeah, she's supporting a racist institution.
We had to.
Can you imagine if the power of magic fell into the hands of a monster?
At first, the Magic High Commission seems to be a benevolent force that is just here to stop magic from being abused, but as the series goes on, we find out just how much it is really here to just support the Kingdom of Muni, which is a deeply oppressive country that was built on stealing land from the native populations, rewriting history to make themselves look like the heroes, then doing everything they can to keep monsters out while branding them as irredeemably evil or aggressors when all they want is to get their land back and to not be forced to live on the outskirts of society. This is Muni's problem. They pick and choose who gets to be considered a monster and giving passage to those that are their allies. This kingdom sucks, and the Commission, despite claiming neutrality of having a higher calling of protecting magic, they've instead been backing the royal family for centuries, co-signing their worst actions and defending them when things blow up in their face. This is wild given the fact that everyone on this council allegedly predates humanity coming to Muni and gaining access to magic, but in spite of that, and how they are inhuman themselves, they still wholeheartedly adopt Muni's racism and distrust of monster kind. This is especially galling here as the actual citizens of Muni are all racist strawmen. They're idiot village people who canonically need everything done for them by their queens. There's no political factions to make the MHC's decision to make them playing into anti-monster sentiment feel like an example of real politique, that they do it to maintain power. No, they all seem to genuinely share the idea that monsters can't be trusted with magic, which again is insane because they predate humanity coming to Muni, hence the classification between what's a human and what's a monster. This culminates in them allowing the King Regent to throw away the real heir to the throne, Meteora, on account of her being half monster, and instead choose to replace her with a random orphan, then lying to this new royal family for centuries after the fact. Star is out here trying to end racism, and the Commission are the biggest proponents of it, with Hekapoo firmly supporting the Commission.
You're gonna need us.
Omnitraxus Prime?
This is a bit of a nightmare for Hekapoo's appeal, as so much of her is just tied into like that cool girl, that apathy. She has the vibe of devil-may-care, going on wild adventures and being a bit of a troublemaker. But all of that reads weird once you make her a part of a corrupt government, as it's hard to take the cool girl and apathetic seriously when she was responsible for creating this society. The sassiness and trolling hit differently when you realize that she is the law. Having Hekapoo represent the system makes her worse than an antagonist. It makes her an obstacle to ending racism.
Not sorry.
She's judging a queen for the crime of getting freaky with a monster, shows no regret for abandoning her daughter to a famously abusive boarding school. The Diamond Guy revealed the secret to save all their lives, and she's pissed at him for it. Hekapoo would rather have died than admit what she did. The story then doing this weird thing with Hekapoo, as it's having her be the system, but then it still wants her to be the fan favorite cool magic dragon girl who wants to hang out with Marco, with the show never really grappling with that that dissonance. Like in the finale, the council insists that they're here to advise Star on how to deal with Meteora, but the acting queen throws them out on account of they suck, and they all just leave to let Muni die. With Hekapoo coming back, but not because she wants to or because of a guilty conscience. No, she's here as a personal favor to Marco and because she's cool, she has to be here, she's like part of the team. When really, no, she's not. This is all kind of her fault. And even when they're trying to slow down the rightful heir to the throne, when things get hard, Hekapoo over here suggests they just, again, abandon the kingdom to let these things blow over.
All right, we gotta come up with a new plan.
Oh, I got one. Let's run for it.
Hekapoo never gets a moment where it feels like she's here for anything other than vibes. You never get the sense that she regrets what she did, which makes the show try to act like she's still part of the friend group feel just oh so off. After all these reveals, we still see her hanging out with Marco. She's talking to Kelly about how insane that between episode breakup was. They were friends with benefits. It was a whole situation. Again, Hekapoo's here and it's fun. But then we see her jumping at the first chance to imprison Eclipse again, and the idea that Star's desire to integrate human society is a bad one. Hekapoo, despite everything, despite what she's done, is still treated like she's part of the team, despite supporting the council's generally racist ethos. With her quibbles about what they're doing being more about how they're doing it than what they're doing is wrong. Eclipse's husband mysteriously breaks free from his imprisonment and starts running away. Hekapoo says they need to lock this family up and make old Queen Karen take back control, which truly ruins any cool girl cred Hekapoo might have had left. Honestly, I can get behind this.
You can excuse racism.
No, see, what I mean is that I'm down for a character to be flawed. Hekapoo supporting an oppressive regime isn't the end of her character or her likability. I love characters who are messy, but I need to be treated as a flaw, not something that is only brought up when it's relevant. Which is something that I can't really do for Hekapoo since the finale is fucking terrible.
So I have to destroy the magic. I guess this means Toffee was right.
Stupid, 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 stupid plan.
TLDR, all of Starverse's attempts to talk about the bigger issues of oppression ends up falling to the wayside in a borderline nonsensical pivot to magic bad. An ending that was neither set up nor earned. Character turns are so abrupt that even if they work in theory, the execution is truly atrocious. And the villain who tries to commit genocide somehow just gets to walk away while all the other ones before have kinda died. It's rough, but the lack of narrative cohesion, how it's doing way too much, sandwiching Star and Marco ending up together in the middle of all of it, this shift from the system is wrong to magic is bad truly remains one of the most galling elements. And Hekapoo suffers from this. Maybe because rather than having her learn or atone for anything, Hekapoo just sits on the sidelines. The writers make a half-hearted attempt to make her the sympathetic one out of this commission, despite the Diamond Guy being the one who actually regretted what happened to Meteora, but instead he got reduced to the overzealous bigot, which did fit his very first appearance. Though I can kind of forgive that for him as he's written to be an idiot with the worldview of a child. So it kind of makes sense even if it still feels a little bit off. Like him admitting he has a crush on a girl he's known since she was born.
Who do you have a crush on?
Queen Moon!
We are 2 for 2 with these eternal beings crushing on people that they met as minors. Go figure. But no, Hekapoo, despite how vehemently against monsters she was in the trial, being angry when information is hidden from her by Moon, she's the one who the story decides to paint in a semi-sympathetic light. Going to warn Marco to avoid Muni as something bad was about to go down, dipping from the pre-victory party to save the royal family, with that being the end of her quote-unquote help. As rather than aiding them herself, she just allows portal travel again and hangs out at a bar, while everyone else fights to save the people Hekapoo has oppressed or endangered for the last, well, thousands of years. And just in case you don't have any regrets about her dying from this, she just says she fully supports Star's insane plan to get rid of magic, saying,
Look, if I'm being honest, I always had the feeling this stuff did more harm than good.
Which is an even more insane statement to make given the lengths she went to keep it out of monster hands. She is going to die because of this plan, and she just co-signs it saying that's okay. Magic sucks. In fact, it's always sucked actually, which is a statement that this show just categorically failed to earn. With this leaving Hekapoo, and by proxy the ship, just in a very bad place. Initially, Hekapoo was my girl. I adored her antics, her temper, her blasé nature when it came just making fun of everyone else around her. But when you put all that on a character who is to blame for maintaining systemic racism, it's not a vibe. That and the fact that it never really goes anywhere, that they can't have Hekapoo be a more active participant in the finale, it just cements my apathy towards her. It's in character for her to sit back and to just let everything happen, but this makes it the last very sour note we ever leave off on her. And all this combined makes it feel like the story didn't really know what to do with her, as it would have her pop up because fan fave, but then it makes her part of the commission, who get written off as defenders of systemic racism. Then they also get the, oh look, they're goofy treatment, which is just a strange combo that never works based on like how I think the show wanted it to. Hell, Glossric, who created the council, has a similarly asinine position in the story where, if you stop to think about it, he's the one who gave humans magic, supported and taught their queens on how to use it, only for him to clap his hands like he's Doctor Strange and that this is somehow the golden outcome he's been planning all along when, dude, you created horrible people, you enabled horrible people. You don't get to nod like this was some wise plan. This is on your head as much as anyone else's. Starver's finale tried to wrap things up in the least challenging way possible, blaming magic and not the actual people and system that created it, with this pivot leaving Hekapoo with not really having a point. She just does what she's always done. Show up, do the bare minimum, then die. Nothing important is said, nothing is learned. It just happened, and everyone is worse off for it. You could say Hekapoo stayed true to who she truly was, but that doesn't really make it satisfying, leaving Hekapoo and her ship with Marco dead in the water, as even if it was the best way out of the problem that they wrote themselves into, Hekapoo's writing makes it so frustrating to enjoy or engage with her as a character. I like morally gray characters or villains that don't reform, but when a show tackles topics like this, I think it's gotta do something more and be a bit more focused. Meaning that Markapoo was a fun relic of a bygone era. The fan art was fire, however the direction the story goes just makes it hard to care, as even if it still looks great, there were better people to ship Marco with, and there was especially better options if you were just trying to spite Starko's inevitability.